Good afternoon, welcome to Medyascope TV. Today we'll talk about the Syrian refugees in Turkey. More specifically, we will cover the extent to which they are integrated to Turkey. We're joined by Omar Kadkoy, who is a research associate at the Economic Policy Research Foundation of Turkey. Mr. Omar Kadkoy is joining us from Ankara via Skype. Hi, Mr. Kadkoy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome to our program. First of all, can you tell us about how many Syrian refugees are there in Turkey? What is the current number?
Yes, the current number of Syrians in Turkey today stands at 3.5 million Syrians who are registered at the temporary protection status.
3.5 million. And when you think about the role of the Syrian refugees having the business world, how many refugees can set up their own business and how many of them are employed as workers? And also, what is the number of the people who are unemployed?
This is a good question, especially about the Syrian entrepreneurs who are establishing their own businesses in Turkey. And it is often an under-discussed topic in Turkey when we talk about Syrians in the country. So if we, for example, look at the number of companies established or co-established by Syrian entrepreneurs in Turkey during the first 6 months of this year, we find that they invested around 120 million Turkish liras to set around 778 companies, mostly located in Istanbul. Now, if we look at the greater picture that has been developing since the influx of Syrians to Turkey business-wise, we see that they have invested around 351 or $52 million as seed capital to establish around 9,500 companies. The majority of these companies operate in wholesale sector, and we also see some activities in retail, construction, agri-food, and garment sectors. Moreover, these companies, size-wise, they are micro, meaning that they hire less than 10 people, but at the same time, anecdotal evidence suggests that these companies are here to stay, in Turkey to stay, and they are planning on expanding their businesses. And when we look at this role they play in certain provinces, we see that they are contributing to the exporting performance of 3 to 4 provinces in a very positive way. And consequently, if we can support them in a proper way, they could play a good role because they are expanding the Turkish economy into new destinations because of the network they already brought when they moved to Turkey. Plus, they also have a role to diffuse social tension by providing inclusive job opportunities. So this is something important, especially when we look at what is happening in the economy of Turkey nowadays. So they arguably have a positive role to play, and they need more support to grow and expand. This is from the entrepreneur side. Now, when we talk about the number of Syrians who are employed or they have work permits, unfortunately the number is still not that great. We're talking about 40,000 Syrians with work permits who received those since 2016 when Ankara introduced the regulation for Syrians to formally enter the labor market. And this is only the 40,000 work permits represent only 2% of Syrians in the working age, because we have around 2 million Syrians in the working age that's between 15 to 64 years old. And this is relatively a low number compared, for example, to the numbers of Syrians who obtain work permits in Jordan.
And what about the financial assistance? How many of them are getting financial assistance in Turkey, especially who are unemployed?
Well, the financial assistance Syrians receive is funded by the EU under the Facility for Refugees in Turkey. The funds come from Brussels, from the European Union, and under the scheme called Emergency Social Safety Net. And this scheme has reached around 1.4 million Syrians who receive monthly cash assistance through debit cards and they have 120 Turkish liras per household member. So all in all, when we look at the number of Syrians who are dependent on aid, we are talking about almost about 35% of Syrians who are living here. But this does not mean necessarily they are only or solely dependent on aid. They might be also trying to get or reach self-resilience by finding their own, by finding either employment or getting or setting their own jobs. And there are not any red tapes that prevent them from doing either of these two things. But at the same time, we see that, entrepreneurially speaking, they are doing maybe better because the employment-wise, they are facing more exploitation in terms of informal employment and longer hours where they are deprived from the work permit right that the government set in early in 2016.
And we're also wondering the mobility of Syrian refugees in Turkey. Syrian refugees went to Syria and they turned back during the Feast of Sacrifice. And many people talked about this. Actually, how many Syrians are going, and what is the percentage of those who are going to Syria for vacation?
Yes, this is a topic that gets a lot of attention every time that happens, but we should actually look at it from a legal perspective. That is the international law. When we recognize asylum seekers and refugees under the international law, they usually get a travel document that allows them to go anywhere except their country of origin. But this is not the case for Syrians in Turkey because Turkey maintains a geographical limitation to 1951 Refugees Convention, and that means that Turkey only grants the refugee status to those people who flee from events occurring in Europe only. But the composition of asylum seekers and refugees in Turkey is not from Europe. They are not from Europe. They are from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and Somalia. Yeah. So when we reference Syrians, to Syrians as refugees, this is actually a symbolic reference because,
yes, of
because of the aforementioned reasons that I mentioned. And Turkey actually allows Syrians to go or opens the border for Syrians to go to Syria only during the religious holidays. And they have the freedom to stay in Syria, but they cannot enter once they give up their IDs they obtained through the Directorate General of Migration Management. So last year, for example, and I'm going to give you precise numbers about this issue because it's a little bit sensitive. So last year we saw that 68,000 Syrians crossed the border to Syria, and of those people, around 9,000 people decided to stay in Syria. This year, on the same occasion, 52,000 Syrians went to Syria and 3,000 decided not to come back to Turkey. So in that sense, it's not something that they do for pleasure or for holiday, as people might label it, but there are many people who go there just to check on their family members who might be still in Syria and they cannot bring them because the family reunification is not well established yet in Turkey. So safety is one thing for them to use as a pull factor and go back to Syria, but it's not the only factor because when we look at the economic and infrastructure conditions, especially in northern Syria, they are not fully materializing in a way that allows a larger scale return of Syrians. Plus, those Syrians in Turkey are not necessarily only coming from regions in northern Syria. There might be people living in Turkey from different parts in Syria, and they cannot go back to those areas because of certain considerations such as security or concerns about forced conscription or arbitrary arrest, etc., etc. So what we see now in Turkey, the movement of Syrians back and forth from Syria is something that happens occasionally during the religious holidays, and this is something that the government allows, and it's not possible on a daily basis.
And we're talking about the integration. Can you tell us about the plans of the Syrian refugees have? Do they want to live in Turkey, or do they want to go back to their country, to stay here, or to go to Europe? Can they still manage to go to Europe now?
I mean, we have some very small scale mechanisms for Syrians to reach Europe in a safe and legal way, and this is only the 101 relocation scheme that is regulated under the EU-Turkey deal on migration in 2016, but it does not allow a large-scale movement in a safe and legal way. But regarding the first part of your question, a survey last year revealed that 52% of Syrians living in Turkey see their future here in this country, and this is
52%. You said, right? 52%. You said, right?
52%.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is fairly understandable because they came to a country that is fairly globalized, middle-income country, and this is something that would open the door for them to develop in a way that maybe not available in their country of origin even before the war. This is one thing. The same survey also talked about that 42% of Syrians want to go to Europe. Of course, we don't know who are these Syrians who want to go to Europe, but we can assume that they are either family members waiting for family reunification, they have husbands or fathers or siblings who already immigrated to Europe and they are waiting to join them. That is one. Two, it could be Syrians who try to reach self-resilience and make a better living for themselves while in Turkey, but they maybe have grown frustrated with the conditions that they faced so far, and they look at Europe as the better destination for them, so they can continue with their lives in a different way. But of course, at the same time, there are Syrians who are also willing to go back to Syria, but the reasons behind their decision vary from political, the occurrence of a political change in Syria, or assurances that might be provided by the government in Damascus about forced conscription or arrests in the first place. So maybe if we can see some political developments in the near future in Syria, the reference of Syrians to staying or going to Europe might change, and returning back to Syria might actually take over that attitude in the first place.
And let's talk about the Syrian children now. How many Syrian children are there in Turkey who are at a schooling age? And how many of these children are educated in schools?
Yeah, when we first mentioned the number of Syrians in Turkey, the 3.5 million, today we're talking about almost one-third of them in the school age. We have around 975,000 Syrians in the school age, and the school enrollment of this almost 1 million is 62%. Well, we have around 610,000 Syrian students enrolled in schools, and the gender breakdown of this number is almost 50-50%, which is something very positive.
Yeah.
And when we look at the breakdown of this number, we see that we have around 37,000 Syrians in preschool, enrolled in preschools. We have around 375,000 enrolled in primary schools. We have around 138,000 in middle school, and 62,000 in high school. These are actually very good and positive numbers, but we also need not to forget about the ones who remain out of school. Those who remain out of school stand around 300 and maybe 55,000, and they face some obstacles that prevent them from entering the school. Here I'm talking about some bureaucratic and awareness issues, some financial issues, because for certain families or for some families, the kids are partially or totally the winners, and this is actually sad, but you know, one way or another, they need to fend their families, and kids sometimes become the only source of income, unfortunately. We also are talking about some cultural issues that also prevent Syrians from either starting or continuing their education in Turkey. Here I'm talking about, of course I cannot generalize, but I'm talking about early marriage among girls, when sometimes parents look at early marriage of girls as a way to ease the economic burden. That is sad to say, but this is a reality we have to recognize and actually work on with the government and other relevant stakeholders. That is one. We have also the fact that the mixed classes is not a very popular idea among some Syrians, and they prefer to send their girls to only girls-based classes. And
who are offering educational opportunities to those Syrian children? Do they establish private schools, or they have education in schools that belongs to the Ministry of Education or international institutions?
Well, around, I guess, 360,000 Syrians are enrolled in public schools, and the remaining ones are enrolled in something called temporary education centers. These centers are supervised and approved by the Ministry of National Education here in Turkey, and these centers offer or teach a modified Arabic curriculum, a copy of the Syrian curriculum that was modified under the supervision of the Ministry of National Education, and they receive 15 hours of Turkish on a weekly basis. But the Ministry of National Education at the same time last year issued a circular saying that they will gradually shut down these centers in favor of integrating all of the Syrian kids into public schools. Doing so faces some obstacles in capacity, but at the same time the government with other international stakeholders are working on building new schools, not only to accommodate the Syrian students, but also enlarge the capacity for local students as well.
Yeah, and when you consider the point we reached by education, do you think that a threshold has been reached in a positive sense?
Well, there is still a room for development when it comes to the policy of education, because there are many students who are traumatized, and teachers of these students must be equipped with certain skills and knowledge about how to deal with them. That is one. Two, not all students maybe have a similar command of Turkish language, which actually makes comprehension of the classes and the information circulated in the class more difficult compared to the command of the Turkish language. And at the same time, the placement of the students, especially beyond or after the first grade, does not follow a structured process. So all in all, accommodation-wise in schools, we have reached a very good point, but we still have some structural problems capacity-wise, and we still have to also recognize the needs of those who are traumatized or who are not fluent in Turkish, or they don't know Turkish enough to fully understand the classes they attend.
And before we start wrapping up, I also want to ask about racism and xenophobia in Turkey. Some time ago, there was an increase in racist attacks against Syrians, but now we don't hear them. Did the Turkish society get used to living with refugees, or just we don't hear the news?
You're right, yes, and especially last year, the Syrians in Turkey were the second targeted group by hate speech from media outlets in Turkey, according to one analysis. And we also have seen an increase in intercommunal violence against Syrians compared to 2016. But we have also to understand that these actions or this type of racism has roots in geopolitical and socioeconomic conditions. The region we live in is diving more into complexity, and economically speaking, Turkey has seen better days than now. And in all of this, politicians, instead of communicating a vision about Syrians and setting a strategy that actually promotes positivity and tolerance, they are riding a far-right wave, and we've seen that from across the political spectrum during the presidential elections that took place in June. But of course, this also type of racism and separation acts could be also rooted to the fact that not so many Syrians so far are able to communicate with their neighbors. Just a few days ago, one research showed that 70% of Syrian women do not speak Turkish. So language is key in fighting this type of racism, because if you want to fight racism, you need to communicate and explain yourself so the other or the hosting community could understand you and accept you. But also this means that integration is a two-way street. To a certain degree, Syrians need to meet the cultural and integrational demands of living in Turkey, but at the same time, the hosting community should extend an arm so we can reach a common ground that is based on dialogue rather than pointing fingers at the other.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kadkoy, for joining us and for your comments.
Thank you.
That's all from our exclusive interview today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.